principles and trust
Yes.
of the community, and with knowing what's right and wrong, knowing that I'm going to have to answer to God. God's not going to say, "Hey, you get a pass, son," because that person disagreed with you. Show me that in Scripture for me as a Christ follower. But this part irritates. I'm so disappointed that we even have to have this discussion about that. Our justice system Lady Justice has a blindfold. It's not a mesh blindfold. It's a blindfold, and it doesn't lift up when it's convenient or when someone's on my side or your side. It's the facts, the law, justice, and order is supposed to be reached through the justice system, and that happens through a member of your peers, even if your peers disagree with you.
So now the next piece of news is, and these are the new buzzwords, instead of hush money trial, now we are supporting a convicted felon as our candidate for president. And I keep on hearing that and keep on hearing that. It's a convicted felon. But can Trump turn this conviction his way? One thing you could say immediately, yes, right?
I think he already has.
He appears to be, that's right. He appears to be. This is having
how much money now?
Oh, he's in the hundreds of millions. It's really hard to think.
It was way over 200.
It was over 200 million just a few days ago, and it's over that. And then he goes into San Francisco and he's talking to a bunch of crypto and techies in San Francisco that went something like 85% to Joe Biden in 2020, and he raises $12 million bucks. So the media apparatchiks are losing you know what. And this is a great sign. I think it really is. It really is a great sign. Trump in the polling seems to look really, really, really good. A very recent poll, I tried to stick with the latest and then see if there's any consistency in previous polls. And the polls are just snapshots in time, so they can be real deceiving, particularly if they're done poorly. But the latest, which seems to be one of several, if there's a flow in this direction, seems to show Trump at least 5 points ahead of Biden. You would think that it should be 50 points, but he's at least 5 points ahead of Biden in those swing states where it seems to matter the most. And that's pretty significant when you make it a six-man race and you put in Kennedy and you put in, who's the other guy? Cornel West, and then I think Marianne Williamson, this other, I don't know if she's in it anymore. Check me out on that, but I think she's still in it. But certainly this new libertarian candidate, when you throw them in the pot, it becomes 6 points.
Yeah.
So the polling seems to look really good for him in critical states. May it continue? And then when you look generally, those polls look really good too. Like Rasmussen just put out a fantastic poll, but fantastic in the sense of how it was conducted. It's statistically significant. They're looking at the right voter demographic, and it looks like Trump is slowly increasing his lead there. So if they were trying to cut his legs off electorally with the verdict, it's been a dismal failure.
Well, they didn't play this out. That's all they wanted. They wanted the convicted felon tag. They don't care if it's going to get turned over on appeal. I mean, look, anyone that's objectively looking at this, and we talked about this, Karen, over the last 2 weeks, left-leaning Democrat legal analysts, right-leaning Republican legal analysts, the one thing they agree on is that this trial was ridiculous. The legal theory was ridiculous. Many people on both sides believe there's no authority for this type of even prosecution. The statute of limitations had run out. They had to play legal gymnastics to even get it to the felony level, and they don't even know what the underlying crime was. I mean, it's really just bad, and not to mention many of the rulings of the presiding judge. But it's got to go through the state court now. I'll let the scholars and the Jonathan Turleys and the Patrick Valentine in our office and all the appellate experts talk about whether it goes straight to the Supreme Court and why. I've not looked into that this week at all. I don't have time, but that's what they wanted. Now the problem for them, I think overall, is they're not getting the reaction they thought. I mean, I've really been interested. I know George loves looking at polling and studies it, and I really take his lead on that. But even the polling seems to have changed. People, it seemed to have been a bigger deal to most people, or more people than not, if he was convicted of a felony months ago, versus I think people watching how this played out. And then when you had media outlets on both sides really talk about it, and CNN to me seemed like they were preparing for I don't know how they thought they could ever come close to getting a not guilty from an unanimous jury in New York, but at least a hung jury, because they didn't want to have too much egg on their face, So it's just interesting to see the dynamic here. I think Trump, like we talked about last week, that the trial served to temper him. I think his demeanor is better, at least what I've seen. I don't follow him every day, but what I've seen, and he's sticking to issues. He needs to stick to issues. He needs to keep it about the American people, because people are hurting. So let's see. Look,
But
there's a
it's
lot of
not
time
over
still
yet.
before. No, yeah, man.
It's not over yet.
Fight's
What
not
is
over.
he has like 3 more trials or criminal trials and
Not anymore.
a number of civil cases that he's still facing.
No, I think me and Nico and I were just chatting on the way in here about this. I think all of those are dead in order. Whether
For now,
they're-
at least.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't think you're going to see them adjudicated until after the election, which of course Trump's Justice Department will put a squash on at least for another 4 years. He's got great news coming out of Georgia and Florida as it pertains to basically trial proceedings stopping at a dead stop. The Georgia trial is now stuck in the appellate system. That's not going anywhere. Because remember, it wasn't just Trump. It was what was the guy's name? Michael Roman. He was a co-defendant in the RICO case. Had appealed to the appellate system to say that, hey, this relationship between Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade, their special prosecutor or lead prosecutor, is beyond improper, and we think it's a significant conflict of interest, and we ought to bring all these proceedings to a stop. And they agreed. They agreed. Now, what's interesting, Nico, is when Scott McAfee, the judge, said that, hey, there's enough evidence here to suggest that there was impropriety. So how about Nathan Wade step down, but I'll let you, Fannie Willis, remain as the prosecutor on the case. They appealed that too. They said, no, you can't do that. Because his argument, Nico, was, we have no evidence, he said, that the impropriety is sufficient to somehow have an undue influence on the case. The defendants disagreed. They appealed to the appellate system. The appellate system came back and sided with the defendants. They put a stay. The judge said, which I think is interesting, well, I'm trying to understand how he could have said this. Okay, that's fine, but I'm still going to be able to issue motions and rulings. And then the appellate system came back and said, no, you can't do that either. So we're effectively going to put an entire stay on this whole thing. It's frozen.
I didn't hear that.
This is the kind of back and forth.
Rulings on pretrial matters, on other stuff, and then the appellate system said, no, we're going to stay the whole thing. So he was probably just trying to let them deal with that issue, see how that plays out for them on the impropriety, but then maybe prepare for trial. I don't know. I can't speak for. I don't know the reasoning behind the judge doing that, but it's a stay. It's a stay. That doesn't mean it's gone, and then it's not dismissed, or it's not going to be.
They said that they will review the judge's decision as part of the appellate process, and it's going to start in October. If it starts in October, there's no way it's going to see the light of day by November. So it's going to go into 2025. And then the Mar-a-Lago stuff, Aileen Cannon said, evidence has come forward to suggest that the special counsel's team had mishandled evidence, that they had changed the order of items inside the boxes, but they had said originally that those were integral, they were intact. But then later came back and said, oops, that's not exactly the case. And
that's the part that scares you. When you admit information, is it exculpatory? Giglio, Brady, these are just different seminal cases that say if there's any exculpatory evidence for impeachment or actual innocence, needs to be turned, or even for cross-examination, needs to be turned over to the defense. So that's the part that worries.
We're going to talk about this in depth, but I also want to ask you about this week, President Biden saying he's stopping asylum processing at the border. And I even texted you and said, wait a second. What is this? And then, of course, we had the D-Day memorial. And I want to ask you a few questions about that. But we are going to take a break, and we will be right back with Sidebar.
You said something earlier.
by watching us fight during the breaks.
We're not fighting. We're just
No, I know.
discussions.
You always move your hands like that and point at me.
I didn't use my middle finger.
Not yet.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about the polls, and we're talking about the conviction and I keep on trying to think of what you said a minute ago, Nico, and that is, come on, how can this case not be appealed? There's so many things, but does it even matter? And then wasn't it the judge yesterday, Mershon, that wanted to bring it out that apparently there was a post on Facebook
I
and
just read that yesterday.
he said, my cousin is a juror and says Trump is getting convicted. Thanks, folks, for all your hard work. And why would that judge even point out that was posted on Facebook? Was it to get ahead of it? Like, what does this all mean? Why does he even care at this point?
Yeah, my pop taught me when I was young. I said, why does anybody do anything? Try to
Okay,
figure
you're
out the
right.
why.
My dad says the same.
I mean, let's just analyze what we have in
My
front of us. I want to analyze the behavior, the intent behind the behavior. Sometimes you can never get to, and it'll drive you crazy if you do try. But it's something significant. Again, how that plays out in the appellate system, whether it's a motion for new trial, I don't know in New York law.
Because the jury wasn't sequestered.
It was
And
not sequestered.
right, and then
But they were given instructions most likely. Don't talk to anybody about this. Do not do any social media, which, that's always a challenge. And so what they look up, what they don't look up, what's influencing them, who's influencing them, what's going on, that's always a challenge. And defense and the state have to make that decision on if a jury gets sequestered. I mean, in Texas, if one side asks for it, you get it. You're not supposed to tell the jury who requested it. So they can just be pissed off at everybody,
Yeah.
And so it's a significant, I think it's significant. We'll see. I haven't looked into exactly what the post said. I just know that that's something that, of course, there's one more thing to complain about, and it's legitimate.
But there are so many things that they can appeal this case on.
Yes, yeah. But that one might get you the quickest one. Again, Patrick's out of town with his family, but just hearing it yesterday, you have this appellate process, whether you go straight to the Supreme Court or go through the judicial system in New York, versus a motion when your trial stays in front of the presiding judge. There's a certain amount of time, at least in Texas, to file a motion for new trial and then your notice of appeal. But that presiding judge can grant that immediately, get immediate relief versus going through that, at least in Texas. Again, New York, I'm not sure. But so let's see.
It's something you can't ignore when it's a social media post. It's not going away.
Well, was it Mershon the one that put it out there?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I mean, that's
I know. That's why I'm like,
like he's trying to maybe CYA or something. I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, you just look back at American history, truly brazen and truly genuinely impressive when judges would do something like that. I was thinking about a piece. I was trying to look it up.
Something like what? I'm sorry.
Well, the judge is out there making issuing commentary on this stuff.
But he's giving notice to it. I mean, what did he say? Did he say something with the post, or did he say, "Hey, look, this you guys need to know about this"?
Making note of it that he saw it and he's aware of it.
Okay, well then sometimes that's a wink, wink. File a motion. I mean, there's times that judges get information if a jury's saying something to a bailiff, comes to the judges and not to either counsel, and the judge will call us in and say, "Hey guys, just let me know. Look, our bailiff said this. Our clerk was told this. I was brought to notice this. I want to let you guys, you do what you think you need of it. Bring motions to me. Let's discuss this in chambers or whatever, on the record, off the record." So if he's just bringing notice to people, that's what he should do.
It just says the notification by the judge did not ask the parties to do anything, but seemed intended to merely flag them.
Flag them for what reason? What mean flag them for what reason? Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So I was thinking about a piece that Victor Davis Hanson had written a few years ago. It was called about in the Las Vegas Review Journal. Are Americans becoming Sovietized? And he lists 10 reasons why America thinks American culture is becoming Sovietized. And reason number 8, he cited as follows. I thought it's pertinent what we're talking about. Soviet prosecutors and courts were weaponized according to ideology. So it's not about evidence. It's not about the rules of evidence. It's not about due process. It's about whatever the winning team is who happens to have the power. And those are how decisions are made. And so we're evaluating the Hunter Biden case. We're evaluating the Trump case. And notice the standards about which we're evaluating. We keep coming back to the rules of evidence. And that's what should guide the court. And the law should guide the court. But that's not what's happening. And we're getting more and more comfortable with it as a culture. It's getting more and more normalized. And so, yeah, it's still outrageous, but it's becoming more and more. This outrage is becoming more and more passe. God help us if the outrage becomes passe on us. If the idea that this becomes normalized, and whoever the winning team is, whoever has power right now, gets to win in a court of law.
Well, look, at some point the people need to be heard and appropriately. I don't know if you saw. I made the effort. And it was an effort for me this week because it was a crazy week to actually watch that interview with Tucker and
I have not seen it.
the guy from El Salvador. What's his name?
Bukele.
Thank you. And it was interesting. I mean, look, they resisted him too. I think they actually, if I understood the interview right, they actually took his party that he was running under off the ballot. I mean, it was crazy stuff. I mean, and then there was resistance from the gangs or resistance from political opponents. And this guy was deliberate. He was unresolved. Didn't waver. Like what did we say last week? Like I mentioned last week when they asked Alexander the Great, "How did you conquer the world?" And he said, "By not wavering." I didn't waver. And so it's going to take resolve to fix something as deeply corrupt and broken as our system. Look, that's what I'm saying. How can we say America is great if we're talking about how rotten and broken the government and the system is? It is. The ideals are great. The foundation is great. Not perfect, great, meaning just in ideas. The land of opportunity, all that stuff is great. Freedom of thought, of worship, of speech, of all that stuff, of entrepreneurship, of ownership, property ownership, individualism, all that's wonderful. But it's not great now, in my humble opinion. It's the best maybe out there, and there's an argument for that, I guess. But all I'm saying is it was interesting to hear him and how this guy got reelected by 90%, George? What's something get
85%.
That's insane. The people love him. They're blessed. It went from the murder capital of the world to the safest country in the Western or wherever hemisphere. I mean, look, and that's in a short period of time, consider, overall. And so, and you know what he did? He said, "You want the official or the unofficial answer?" What? I want give me both. We prayed for wisdom. We prayed for God's wisdom. Because you pray for God's wisdom, we prayed as a cabinet for God's wisdom.
And yet, the process that ensued after he took office to restore order to the country was a violent one. We just needed, if you're looking at what happened, I mean, everybody's happy that what's happening in El Salvador is happening. Well, unless you're on the left side of the political spectrum.
Right.
But if you like law and order, if you care about low crime, if you care about the ability to walk in your neighborhood without getting assaulted, that's a good thing what's going on in El Salvador. But God forbid we come to a point where we need to do what Bukele had to do in order to restore order in the country. And this is the great irony. It's false as it pertains to Biden, but unfortunately, it would be true as it would pertain to whoever a conservative would be, who would take power and do. Because Biden says, "Let's save democracy by destroying it." Everybody steps back and says, "This guy's insane. You don't save democracy by destroying it." But in reality, that's what Bukele did. He had to, in order to save democracy, he had to come in and destroy. He had to basically destroy democratic processes, any democratic processes that were in place, because they were being misused and they were being abused for the other side. And so this was a violent. There were people who were incarcerated. There were people that were killed, and we'll concede that. This is reality.
I mean, he didn't do it. It was part of the process.
It was part of the process, but it was people who are on Bukele's side. That's how far things got away from where they should have been, where you actually violence is necessary to restore order, and that's a tragedy. That's not something.
But what does that look like here? What is it?
Something very different here.
I get in conversations, I know Nico does too, where people are kind of pushing us to issue an opinion on that, and I worry about it. I try to avoid those conversations. I mean, I'll have those conversations. I don't freak out about them, but I try to avoid them. I don't try to start there. You don't want to start there. You want to exhaust all your political levers, as I like to call it, and we have plenty in this country. But when you bring up Bukele, it is a bittersweet topic. It really is.
Because of how it came down.
May we pray. He says he prayed for wisdom. May we be praying that things don't have to get that bad, Nico, before before things get so violent. In order
I'm hopeful
to bring
here.
some normalcy back to the country.
100%. And I don't think we're anywhere close to where they were at. Nowhere close. I mean, no, we're not. I mean, look at Portland. I mean, they elected someone that's not crazy. Happened to be Republican, because Republicans are crazy too. But they said, look, we had a Soros DA in here, and our city is going to hell in a handbasket. It's terrible. So those ideas have consequences. I've said this many times before. And so we need someone else. I don't give a crap what label you have. I just want some other ideas. And so here came the former prosecutor. But again, the overcorrection is dangerous too. And that's what thank God Bukele accomplished what he's accomplishing, and his people are celebrating it. Because if you win re-election by 85+%, your people are very pleased with you, and they're benefiting from your true leadership. True leadership.
I think you're right. I think the desperation isn't there. We don't see the mass mayhem that you saw in El Salvador for years. But if you study it, and it's not just El Salvador, it's other third world countries where things went south. I mean, you can look at Havana in 1959, and you can fast forward another 10 years. Look how quickly things can turn. I didn't mean 10 years, 10 months, just in a matter of months. Look at how quickly things can turn from being reasonable to being absolutely chaotic. And that's what I'm worried about. I really am. Biden has resistance right now. This regime has plenty of resistance right now. If he wins, I ask, what will remain of these structures of resistance in the country? Really, he's got 4 years. They're already talking openly about packing the court and diluting the power of the court, which seems to be one of our very few integral institutions in the country right now. And Americans still trust the United States Supreme Court. If Democrats win, they're going to pack the court. There goes the legitimacy of the court. What will be the appeal? To whom will Americans appeal then when we see what's going on at local courts? That's what I worry about. So if the court system goes by the wayside, we know what's going on in the United States military. We see what's going on in U.S. academia right now. We see what's happening in American corporate boards by way of enforcing left-wing ideology through human resource policy. What will be the appeal? And that's why we keep coming back to how existentially significant this election is.
It is.
Because there's been so much that's been carved out. So many of the American institutions have been really hollowed out. What's left? So we should be praying, and we better be civically responsible, because this really is significant. What's facing us right now, remember?
With our doubts about the court system because of what happened to Trump and what's happening to Hunter Biden, I was laughing by myself thinking, well, in El Salvador, did they have mail-in ballots? I mean, how did he win by 85%? Did they have paper up on the windows when they were counting ballots?
Mexico just had an election, and they vote on one day. They vote on a Sunday, because my in-laws live in Mexico. They vote on Sunday, so people don't have an excuse. It's one day. It's in person, and they count their votes. Go figure.
How does that happen?
Well, I mean, look. This is why it's embarrassing when you have these conversations. You look at other countries, Argentina, and other countries. It's really becomes an excuse. I mean, look, I'm okay for early voting. I really am. I don't mind that. In a busy world, 2 weeks. To me, 2 weeks for early voting is plenty. You can go to any polling site, but you have to have a good ID. None of this other BS. I mean, those are not unusual.
You can't even serve on a jury without an ID.
Well, you can't do anything. You can't get an apartment. You can't drive. You can't do anything without. You can't buy liquor. You can't buy anything without an ID. But yeah, you can vote for the most important people that are going to run your country. It's not logically consistent, so then you have to push back.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Please stay with us. There's so much to talk about, and we want your comments too. So we'll be right back with more on Sidebar.
years, 80,000 arrested. Yeah.
governors, including Governor Abbott, will, I think, he has to do something, at least on the appearance. But it's really smoke. It's a facade, because in the end, it doesn't do much. It doesn't do anything. I think it's just a stupid move overall, because I just think it makes it even more obvious that you were playing with the people and that you didn't. You don't
and it's really not stopping people, right?
No.
It's just like they put a number on it. Like, well, after 2,500 a day, then we're going to do this. It's like, what difference
Who's
is
keeping
25?
track of that?
Who's keeping track of what?
Oh, there's 25. You got 2,500 down
I
that
don't know.
side.
They have, somebody has a little.
You gotta
cover.
read. The devil's in the details. You gotta read the fine print, and it's an absolute joke. I mean, all this you guys have said is completely right, and people have every right to be skeptical, and they should. Nico used the word farce. It is absolutely a farce. It's a total charade. Look, this guy comes in within the first couple of months. He issues dozens of executive orders to reverse Trump's gains on controlling the border. Remain in Mexico. I mean, he went after that. That's gone. The catch and release was reinstated. We know what that's done. 11 million illegals have come in on his watch. Okay, 11 million. You're right, in the past, but the past is just January. In January, they basically said, "Hey, are you gonna do something about the border? You have the power to do so. You're the president of the United States." And he said that I've done all that I can do. This is in January. Now, the executive order says that it's going to help us to gain control of our border and restore order to the asylum system. So if you look at it, does it really do that? And why has he done it till now? So the believability factor is way in the basement. So if he's doing it right now, why is it? Could it be that every poll shows him being absolutely decimated on matters of the economy and the border? to Trump. I mean, Trump's numbers are in the double digits over Biden on those particular issues, the economy and the border. And we have argued that they're one and the same because you have hordes of illegal aliens coming in, and they're taking all the meaningful jobs, which affect indisputably minorities. If you're black and you're Asian and you're Hispanic, those jobs in particular are being stolen from minorities, and it's driving the labor participation rate way down, and so Americans are being left without jobs. I can't remember the piece that I wrote, Nico, but I thought it was interesting. That said, nearly all of the jobs that have been created since November, at least half of them are now in the hands of illegal aliens. Half of the jobs that have been created since November, to the tune of something like 840,000.
Who gathers that data?
This is the House Budget Committee.
Okay,
and yes, and they were retrieving data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Couldn't remember the name. So many agencies, but it is an official number. Some 840,000 jobs in the hands of illegal aliens, which calculates to about half of all new jobs created or made available, I should say, since November.
Right, but the other half is the Americans who are having to get second and third jobs just to make ends meet.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. It's not that more jobs have been created; they're just getting multiple jobs just to achieve what one job used to achieve a few years ago. So this is cynical. So what's the change? I went back and looked at it, Nico. What it does is that these provisions to ban illegal entries only kick in. That's the point. Nothing happens. They only kick in once illegal crossings exceed 2,500 per day, which is something like 1 million a year. So effective immediately, the provision says, let's let in another 1 million, and then we'll do something about it. This is how cynical this is. After he's already let in 11 million. So on the wording, it's unbelievable. And politically, it's unbelievable. It's a joke. This is a gimmick, and he's hoping to be able to project that he really cares and that he's really doing something so that his poll numbers comes up. Anybody with a brain can figure out what's going on. What an unbelievable insult on something that is truly, truly dangerous. Who are the people coming in? Who the hell knows?
I think this gets turned around on him as other things.
Just like the felony conviction.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I don't know. I guess you got to do something if you're in their position and you're getting closer to November, and you're seeing the polls and you're hearing from the people and you're seeing the people that typically would be supporting Biden or not. I heard something interesting this week that they're seeing Biden's campaign is seeing that he's bleeding support with Hispanics and blacks and minority groups, that they're actually trying to go back and get more white votes. I don't know. I mean, it just.
Let's go back to the drawing board.
You know, I mean, who knows with these people? All I hope is that people wake up, get outside of the label, get outside of the tribe, and say, look, what's best for the country, so we can go back to disagreeing on the other stuff that we want to disagree about. But we got to do it safely. We got to have a border. We have to have a strong military so people won't invade us. And if we're going to lead, we have to be leaders, meaning that you have to be strong. I truly believe, and I think Reagan said this as well, a lot of people have said that there's peace through strength. There just is. If you're on a schoolyard or any yard and you see somebody and you see an individual that's a badass and that can take care of himself or herself, and they're the ones that you're least going to mess with. There's peace because they know you're strong. Now you hope that you do the right thing with that strength and that it's tempered and that it's meek, not weak. That means strength under control, where that's what meekness is. That's what you want out of a superpower in a country that has that type of responsibility. But if you want to lead, you have to have the responsibility to be strong, and that the whole conversation about D-Day that we were talking about. I know we're going to talk about
yes,
that in the next block, but we couldn't handle something like that today.
No, and these two issues of D-Day and what we're just talking about illegal immigration, they're related because you're losing cohesion. You don't have the national cohesion that you had. You're not going to have that patriotic rigor that you had. You had enough people in the 1940s who actually understood what the country stood for. They knew what it meant to be free.
Have you seen how pissed off the soldiers are? They are like, what is going on?
With good reason, and I think that's a big problem. Could we in fact mount a D-Day operation today? I think seriously questionable. The military is in absolute shambles. Not only is it significantly ill-defined, because our leaders have lost their minds, but just again the sense of why people are there, that's been lost, and so yeah, it's worrisome. So the whole D-Day thing this past week, I think we should really be reflecting on the implications of what happened in Normandy. And then you have the president doing what he did. I mean, he's looking for an imaginary. He's looking for an imaginary chair. He's shuffling across the stage, waving at whoever. I don't know who the hell he was waving to. And again, he's sitting there trying to sit down on a chair that isn't there. And then he rambles on, almost mourning the loss of Russian troops in Ukraine. Have you forgotten why you're there, Joseph R. Biden? It's not about Ukraine, buddy. And I don't think this is the time to mourn the loss of Russian troops, with all respect.
It's just weird. I don't know. It's because he didn't write that speech, and so, but even the people that are writing the speech, they're just so disconnected.
It's such a stretch, though, to put Ukraine into that speech. I didn't get that.
But when you're an ideologue, and it's almost a cultish mindset, everything's about that. Everything's. Remember, for a while there, everything was about racism and everything was about ethnicity. You couldn't have a discussion with anybody on any topic unless you discussed black versus white and all this, or brown versus white, or whatever it was. And then it was about masks and no masks, and there was division there. You couldn't have a conversation, and people didn't have Christmas together. Then it was shot, no shot, and people died alone, and people missed weddings, and people missed baby births, and it was just ridiculous. And I think people are realizing. I'm seeing more and more conversations about it, as there should be. And the only way you hold people accountable is you kick the people out of office that had these crappy ideas. That's it. I mean, don't even label the idea. Let's just talk about ideas. That's why I talk about that so much, because Karen, you know that, especially when we get closer and closer to the election, the tribalism is going to get stronger and stronger. I want to see more of what happened in the Bronx, where that lady, it was a wonderful interview. She's walking up to the Trump rally, and she just goes, "Look, I've voted Democrat all my life. I've never voted for a Republican. I'm voting for Trump. I just am." And again, it's not about Trump. It's about the ideas that either Trump or Biden are trying to impose. I don't remember who said this a while back. You're not voting for really a candidate. Yes, you're voting through a candidate, but you're voting through a candidate for the ideas that they're trying to implement. And that's it. Now, hopefully you get a twofer and you like the candidate that you're voting for, the ideas about. But it's really about the ideas that are either destroying or going to bless this country ultimately.
I also saw a woman on social media saying that she's tired of hearing people saying, "Look what they're doing to Trump. That's going to happen to you." She said, people need to realize it is already happening to you, because she was a homeschooling mom who had this happen to her, and she was talking about the protesters at abortion clinics. She's like, it's already happening. People, wake up. This is not something that's going to happen to America. It's already happening. We have one more segment. You've got to stick with us, and you've got to check us out on Facebook Live or other social media platforms at sidebartv.com. You can find them there, because we'll continue after the show. This is Sidebar. Right now, and I wanted to mention a comment that Lisa just typed in, and that is to you, Nico, she
Mhm.
says, you're naive because there are a whole lot of unelected government workers who are pushing the agenda, and voting's not going to remove those and the government, the unelected, and they are the ones that are growing rapidly.
Well, Lisa, you're entitled to your opinion, but who said it was one or the other? What I'm saying is, how are you going to get those unelected workers to move on or to change the culture there? You change the people in charge. So I didn't say that was the only thing to do. I mean, so I don't know who's naive here, but it's fine. I'm fine being naive, I guess. But maybe you're naive in thinking that it's got to start somewhere, because then what's the answer? I mean, what frustrates me about people, and not Lisa specifically, is that people bitch about things and they complain, and then they have no strategy. And we didn't lose all this ground. We didn't lose the culture in this country. We didn't have all this division overnight. We're not going to correct it overnight, but we got to do something. And so you one bite at a time, one step at a time, one movement at a time. And I promise you, a big significant move would be to put people in office that truly care about this country, that understand what our founding principles are about, that care about all people, even the people they disagree with, and want to secure our country so we can have our healthy disagreements, which is actually good. You want some healthy tension so you can make sure that your ideas are refined and better, and you can learn from each other. But that's what you need. But it starts at the top, or it starts anyone in local officials or statewide officials. So yeah, I don't think I made the point that that's the only thing you do, but it's definitely something that needs to happen. And then look, I mean, it needs to happen in the church. What's Lisa doing with her friends of influence? And again, I'm not attacking Lisa per se, but I mean, are you trying to persuade people along your way instead of just saying, you're wrong, I don't like you, well, hold on, let me tell you why I disagree with you. And we're going to talk, look, I mean, there was a guy that commented on last week named Manny, and he had some pretty, crude or whatever kind of comments and name calling, and I said, that's not a way to start a conversation, but I'm happy to have one with you. And he said, I'd like to. I said, man, private message me, and it was on me. I needed to text him back this weekend, but we texted each other, and so I'm going to text him after the show. Just remembered him right now, and we're going to have a conversation. I don't know where it's going to go, but we got to have conversations, and then we got to try to figure stuff out.
People don't want to talk to each other that are on opposing sides because, God forbid somebody learns something, or at least understand what's happening and why somebody believes what they do. Because it seems that sometimes the left just start shouting and name calling just to run away from the situation because the facts are just not important to them.
If your main argument in a trial was to call the other person a name, make a conclusory statement without any supporting evidence or fact, well, then you're probably losing that argument. Now, doesn't mean you're going to lose the trial. It depends on your audience. Again, going back to my original point, that we got to get away from that. We need people that have a moral compass that says, look, truth matters. There is a right and wrong. And someone that I disagree with could be right about this issue. If there's someone that I disagree with that is innocent and is being falsely accused, and even they should have been rightly accused about A, B, and C, but they're being falsely accused about D, they're going to be found not guilty on D. Go back after them for A, B, and C. We've got to get there because we justify the ends by the means, and that's not the way to run a country, in my humble opinion.
I think people see their country being lost incrementally, and they're getting frustrated, they're getting angry. They don't know what to do. We often say on the show that the best way is to actually get involved. We got a problem with with election workers who are playing fast and loose. Then become an election worker. Turn the tide around. The Republican National Committee is actively recruiting, trying to solicit support to get people out there, to have a strong grassroots movement. Consider if that's a burden that you have, then jump in there, become part of the solution. It is true. There was a poll that was put out in October of 2023 by the Public Affairs Council that said a little more than a third of Americans actually believe that the electoral voting system is fair. I mean, that's a tragic number, I think.
Polling everybody, just in general?
Yeah, that a third of American voters actually believe that.
I don't believe it's fair. Not after this last.
But a third, Karen, that's abysmal.
Yeah.
And that 67% of people do not believe.
Okay, that is something different. I'm like trying to hear you say something else. But
I'm sorry if I said
yes,
it.
No, you're right.
But the overwhelming majority, to the tune of 2/3 of people, don't believe that
there's anything wrong.
Right, and about 37% believe, quote, that it will be both honest and open to rightful voters. That's a huge indictment on our trust for our electoral system. And so it is a problem. It's a big problem. Most Americans feel like that. I think it's catatonic. People see themselves going over the cliff. They don't know what to do. Their leaders aren't listening. And the people who are in power benefit from that. The problem of illegal aliens voting is a serious problem. The United States Constitution requires a census be done, once every 10 years. And regardless of immigration or censorship status, you can be counted. And because congressional districts are apportioned based on that, you can see what's going to happen by the 2030 census. Look at the number of illegal aliens that are in the country right now. I would anticipate if you add up the numbers, and no, it's no longer 11 million. We just brought in 11 million in the last 3 years. And 5-6 years ago, MIT put out a study then that said it was 22 million then. So I would argue if you add up the numbers, it's over 50 million. That is a significant voting block. Voter registration is pretty loosey-goosey. In many states, voter ID is not even required. So these are legitimate issues. But to your point, what do? Well, bitching all day long can't help. And remember, I always say, Biden's in office. Democrats have the power they have largely because Americans have been okay with it. So don't bitch too much. Don't get too upset because you've been part of the problem. I've been part of the problem too. And so we gotta undo this, but I gotta be part of the solution. I can't just sit here and bitch. I gotta get out there and be part of the solution. Become an election worker. Indeed. That's right. Become a vote counter. Be one of the people that rights the ship, that get involved. But it is a legitimate issue. A lot of Americans are worried.
Well, we go back to our standard bearer again. People want to criticize Mexico, but in Mexico you can't even own property if you're not a citizen.
I know.
You can't.
I know.
You can't vote. This is why people make fun of us. Like, who are you guys to complain or criticize or correct anybody about freedoms when you prosecute your political opponents? When you censor people, freedom of what? You don't have freedom of speech. People are getting censored, being forced. At some point, we're going to have to bring up the whole COVID shutdowns and mandates again, because where is the accountability for that? There's no more debate. There was horrible reaction to the COVID situation, and
no one's taking responsibility.
Nobody is. From distancing to masking up kids, to shutting down schools, to shutting down businesses. And there's a percentage, I don't have it right now, of small businesses that did not reopen, and what it did to the economy, what it did to our debt, what it did to mental health, and
businesses are still closing down because of it. It's
horrible. And no, to medical freedom, to choice, to anything. My body, my choice. Yeah, well, that doesn't apply obviously to that. So all of this, and no one's held accountable for that. And so people need to be reminded. Certain people need to say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. You're entitled to be wrong. I'm wrong about things. George is wrong about things. Karen, you're never wrong.
I'm never wrong.
But we are. And so that's a part of life. You course correct. You get more information, and then you make a reassessment, and then you course correct. And if there's an apology, say, man, I was wrong. I was genuinely wrong, but I was wrong, and we got to learn from this and do better. That's called repentance. That's a biblical principle. You change direction. You're not just sorry. You're not sorry that you were proven wrong. That's called remorse, or sorry you got caught. You're sorry enough to change direction and to do things differently. And it comes from a genuine, humble, contrite heart. And we don't have that anymore. It's like, I'm never going to apologize. I don't want to take a position. You're going to throw it back in my face and double down on stupid. I mean, just look at Fauci at the hearings last week. We didn't even get a chance to talk about that.
Ugly.
The guy's such a pompous ass, and he's ridiculous. And as much as Marjorie Taylor Greene irritates the crap out of me sometimes, I mean, she was the only one that I saw. I didn't watch the whole damn hearing. I don't have time, but she was the one that I saw did an aggressive, appropriate
to his face.
Well, I'm not into the name calling. And you're not a doctor to me. Okay, whatever. That's for a little hyperbolic, and that's for effect. But to hold it, have the facts ready to go. You're in the middle of cross-examination. You have a seasoned person that knows how to manipulate facts and cover his ass. You better be ready with a strong cross-examination if you're going to have it. If you're going to get the truth out there. So, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, so we all need to do something. And yes, it does involve voting people in with better ideas. That's it.
Which, there are these moments of reflecting on where we've come from and where we need to get back to. And I think that, again, getting back to D-Day, I was filled with hope reflecting on American History Day, and even considering where we are right now. Because there's a lot of people throughout America that still hold true to those traditional values, that motivated the courage and those young men to go overseas. I don't think all is lost by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not in the slightest bit hopeless, not just because I'm a believer in it. And I believe that this is all operating within God's sovereign plan, and nothing happens outside of His plan. He's not sitting around, as we say, breaking sweat. He's not sitting around surprised that this. And you look at what motivated Americans to I mean, these were. I have a 16-year-old son, and the boys that crashed the shores of Normandy in France on June 6, 1942, most of them were 18 and 19 years of age. I mean, 2 or 3 years before that, they had been in American cafeterias and high schools across the country. Their biggest decision was, am I going to have, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or am I going to have open-faced turkey sandwiches, maybe with green beans? And then 2 years later, they're getting cut in half by NG-42 machine guns from Germans that were deeply entrenched in complex
trenches,
bunkers and trenches. Right there as they literally landed. You had mortar flying overhead. Thousands of them just slaughtered. Their moms are back home, wondering if they'll ever see their boys again. Of course, we know the tragic story in many of their cases. What were they fighting for? What in the world would motivate an 18-year-old to go out there? There's something deep, something important, something worth dying for, and that is the American commitment to freedom. Do we have that today?
To hear those soldiers saying that, what were we there for if this is what America is today, was just heartbreaking.
Well, look, have a great weekend, everybody. Look, there's hope. Where there's hope, people are talking, they're having more conversations. There's more people bringing things up. I think more truth is coming to light, and you still have your vote, and you still have your ability to share your ideas. Now, for me, I always encourage people to pray about how you share your ideas, convince people, persuade people, educate yourself. Always be open to course correct if you're wrong about something, be a pursuer of truth, a scavenger of truth, as we say. Guys, thank you for joining in this weekend. I hope you remember what so many did by sacrificing their life on D-Day for us, and we're hopefully preserving what they did for us, and many others that have lost their lives during other wars. God bless your families. Please join us for a little while longer on Facebook Live. Have a blessed weekend with your families.
Kurt Schlichter wrote a piece on Town Hall called "America Can Choose to Be Great Again." This was written on D-Day. He's a former military man. He's also a lawyer. And this it's a pretty long piece, but this is the part that stood out because it asks us a question at the end. Our institutions under this garbage ruling class's leadership have uniformly failed, from the military to Hollywood to the government. We're being led by President Pinocchio, a perv with a 5-foot nose who hopes that someday he will magically turn into a real chief executive. We have one political party trying to put the leader of the other in jail because they can't beat him fair and square. They want to put you in jail too. Some socialist scumbags set fire to a cop car and got 15 months in jail, while a 75-year-old lady tried to keep people from killing babies and got 2 years. They want to destroy the Supreme Court. They want to outlaw your free speech. They want to impose a racial spoil system where if your relatives came from north of the equator and you know which bathroom to pee in, you're foreclosed from any position of authority or prestige. Our country is poorer, it's dumber, and to judge by the latest Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, fatter and uglier than ever before. That is not the America we grew up thinking we would inherit. The promise of America has been broken, but do we just need to accept that and resign ourselves to failure? Absolutely not. And so he goes on to say, why is that? And then he reflects back on where we've been and how we've been in very, very difficult intersections in our history before. And through courage and conviction, we were able to turn things around. And so the question that every American has is, Nico, okay, but is there something fundamentally different about where we are relative to where we've been in the past? Are we too far gone? Is there not enough uniformity in terms of the values that we hold in this country that can kind of glue us together and bring us back together around a common cause? And is that common cause reflective of the values, the norms, the traditions that forged the country together? Or is it some common cause that's very different in America that ultimately leads us to a darker place anyway? So I think people have some serious questions, and we don't have the answers, but I think this is the kind of conversation that needs to be had. America has thrived for 250 years. We've become the most powerful country on the face of the earth for a reason. And a beacon of prosperity, and that's being lost.
Well, I think there are answers. I don't have all the answers, but I know who does. And I think what Bukele did in El Salvador and the leadership praying for wisdom. I mean, wisdom is not just knowledge, as we always talk about. Wisdom is knowledge plus understanding. You can't lead a country without wisdom. George Washington says you cannot lead a country without God and the Bible. George Washington, first president of the United States, said that. You don't have to like it, but that's history. You can't change it. I mean, and the presidents to follow had a very similar idea because they knew what they were dealing with. You're dealing with the human condition that is inherently flawed on its own. We have examples of that. Hitler, Mao, Stalin, Lenin. I mean, we have over and over, we have millions and millions of dead bodies because of people trying to play God and wanting to make up the rules and then not valuing human beings, whether you agree with them or not, and then living life the way they want to live them. So the answer is getting back to the foundation. What always irritates me about companies is they grow, they have this growth model, and then they have this this culture and this set of ideas in their growth. And they get to a certain level, they get ultra exposure or recognition, and then like, oh shit, let's change the way we do things. Then they did the DEI and they bring in all this other stuff, and then they become woke and they become progressive. And then they screw it all up. I mean, it's like, what are you doing, you idiot? I mean, just stay the course. You got there for a reason. I mean, look, Chick-fil-A is a good example of it for now. And Hobby Lobby for now. Whatever it is. I mean, look at Target. They lost market share because of all the shit that they pulled. I mean, Budweiser or whatever else. And good. You should. Just if you started your company that way, then you grew that way. Stick to it. I'm not saying that you can't have that opinion. But all I'm saying is we got to go back. I'm using that as an example. Go back to what our founding fathers thought. And I know there's going to be people out there, well, they're a bunch of slave-owning racists. We had that discussion many, many times before. But there's a set of ideas and ideals and principles that undergirded the foundation of this country. And it was liberty. It was freedom, entrepreneurship. It was yes, whether you like it or not, it was a faith in a creator. It's a God, something outside of time, space, and matter that created us all, that gave these rights, that endowed these rights, bestowed these rights on us, that government didn't give us, government cannot take away. And so with that mindset, that allows us to freely have an exchange of ideas, to engage into the exercise of persuasion. And there's two ways to run a country, Karen. We've talked about this before. It's either through force or through persuasion. Our founding fathers said it was going to be through persuasion. Let the best idea win. Come to the market of ideas and bring your idea, and let's see which one the market will sustain and one to go with. And that's how we've gotten away from that censorship, administrative state. When unelected officials are making laws and running the country instead of our constitutional republic, we've gotten away from the foundations. And then part of that foundation, guys, and I'll pass on this, is the idea that there is a God, a creator that gave us not only rights, but gave us this definition of what's right and wrong and what it is like to have a nuclear family and to understand things. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, next week, whether it's Pride Month or this month, and everyone's trying to have a month. And then we've just gotten so far away from the ideals of this country. And if you're going to do that, well, then take that to the people. And if the people want to change this country, then give other people the chance to go to another country, because let the people's will rule. That's what I believe.
One thing, it still blows my mind that people are against MAGA because what it stands for is Make America Great Again, which blows my mind that anybody would be against making America great. I guess again is what kills them or something, because it, just like Nico said, it isn't great right now, but it can be. And I don't know, going back to that whole Pride Month thing, there was a guy on social media, I guess it was on Instagram or something, that went viral and everybody was screaming because it was a guy that owned a bar and he had a straight month. And so straight guy month. And so any straight guy that came in would get a free beer.
How do you test that? Go grab his junk and see if he likes it or not, or what?
I think all you had to do is come in and say, I'm a straight guy, and you would get, a beer. But people flipped out. But it just goes to show you, like, you can have a Pride Month, but if you believe in the family, or I don't know, being straight it's so boring.
Communist thinking.
It's not boring for me.
I know.
Or my wife.
Go ahead. I was like, communist and Marxist thinking never quite got grounded in the United States. Dividing people into groups and let it catch like wildfire. That never really took off in America, and we were making such great strides. And then the age of Obama comes, and then I think you could look from 2008 until now. It's just been a very quick descent. But I mean, what is it about that? I mean, are people not curious about that? I mean, the average American never developed a sense of class consciousness. What a beautiful thing. I mean, there wasn't a sense of that or division. I mean, remember the notion of the American dream?
Yeah.
Do you think the average American can even describe what the American dream was? I mean, the idea that one's origins can be transcended by faith and education and hard work and decent citizenship and national pride around those things. Do you think the average American can articulate what that is? I don't think so. So what's been lost? We're not teaching it anymore. We don't talk about it with pride anymore. And so Pride Month is an absolute disaster. I mean, the idea that we're going to be prideful of what? What is it that we're prideful of? Because of our particular sexual practices, which are an absolute abandonment of heterosexual norms. That's what we're prideful about. What did it take to get here? Do you think these people they were just born celebrating Pride Month? I mean, this has been a systematic, incremental seeding of ideology in our young boys and girls for decades. And so Nico and I always come back to this point. It didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to correct overnight. Every single citizen has a particular role. I know it almost sounds like a broken record. If I can even use that analogy anymore, because most people don't know what a record is.
That's so funny that you say that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we just repeat ourselves here because I don't think we can say this enough. Every citizen, it's got to be all hands on deck. Every citizen who's genuinely concerned, stop the bitching. I read the boards too, the comment boards on all the major publications. I read them. I read them on Fox News. I read them on CNN. Read them on the Spectator. I always want to see what's going on across the water in the UK. So I read the Spectator.uk a lot. on Town Hall, certainly the Washington Times, the New York Post. I read all the comment boards as much as I read the articles because I want to see what the average American is saying. And there's a lot of really interesting wisdom in there. I mean, some really cool stuff. But people generally are frustrated. They're angry. The anger is palpable, and they're bitching. If we just turn those energies back to the things that made the country great, a commitment to faith, a commitment to being educated, not being ignorant effing morons, and to truly working hard for those ideals and really teaching our kids, Nico, what does it mean to be a good citizen in the United States of America? What does it mean to be productive?
Well, that's not taught anymore.
It's not taught. So every citizen has to take ownership for that, because that's what our founders wanted. That's what our founders were shooting for. Virtue in the average citizen. If you're looking to the government to right this ship, you're screwed. It isn't going to happen. So it comes down to every single citizen. There is no quick way to fix this.
But to your point, there is no quick way to fix it. But we have to detox, right? When people have to clean out their liver or their kidneys or whatever and change up their cellular structure inside to get some disease out of their body, it takes time. But you asked a question about MAGA, and we've talked about this months ago on the show, that I'm hoping that there will be MAGA Democrats and MAGA Republicans.
Yeah.
Because the idea of MAGA, of course, it's been tied to Trump, but I found this a long time ago and I shared it with you guys. MAGA agenda, Make America Great agenda, stands for secure borders, fair elections, energy independence. I like to say, they say tough on crime, and you know that overcorrection that I always worry about. But I mean, just recent, obviously strict on crime, save babies, stop genital mutilation of kids, let kids be kids. Put parents first, let people choose what school they want to go to, and make schools compete for your attendance. Protect constitutional rights that apply to all Americans, by the way, and put America first over other countries and illegals. I mean, that used to be everybody's agenda, by the way. When you really think about this, if you look at this 30 years ago, this wasn't these were not Republican issues. They just weren't. And so the MAGA agenda, if this is the MAGA agenda, I mean, there may be one or two things that people disagree with, but I don't know. But let's have the debate about that. But this is the agenda what we're just talking about. So what's wrong with that? And I like to have conversations about that. And if there's something wrong with this, what do you want to replace it with? Because what we're replacing with it now, we won't have a country as time goes on.
And refute the narrative that MAGA is inherently racist. The idea that Trump is inherently racist. I mean, it's an abysmal.
Why do they keep saying he's a racist?
It's a disgusting lie, because it all comes back. Exactly right. They attach that stigma to him, which is grotesquely unwarranted. It comes down the escalator in 2015, and he brought to light what every American was thinking was a concern with illegal immigration then. And he's talking about people who are coming across the border, which are not being vetted. We don't know who the fuck these people are. We really don't. They're causing damage across the American interior. We know that. We just simply know that. It's an objective fact that's been reported in multiple sources for years. Trump comes down and he shines light on that fact. It's a topic that shall not be named. And Trump went right after it. And he talked about illegal immigration. Translation, oh my goodness, he's going after illegal aliens. So he is racist.
Well, he didn't even bring that up first. He wasn't the first one. Harry
They're
Reid
not sending us our
talks
best.
about right side, birthright immigration or citizenship. Bill Clinton talked about illegal immigration is the greatest threat to our country in '95. I mean, Trump didn't even think of it.
Barbara Jordan,
I mean,
who was a Democrat and who happened to be a black woman. She led the effort against illegal immigration. I love that woman. I wish she was still around. Unfortunately, she passed away way too soon. A staunch Democrat, a Texan. And
how'd she pass away?
Natural causes. I mean, she developed an illness and died. Unfortunately, it was tragic. Now that's the kind of Democrat we need. Boy, I'll tell you what a leader. I mean, you look back and you feel great pride, and you're looking at the caliber of the human being, and the party is secondary. That's my point. That's the kind of stuff we got to get back to. You have to fight for that. You have to argue for it. That's what I mean. You got to inform yourself and be courageous to talk about those things, and teach your kids, and find people of like mind. Start studies, start groups, start educating. For goodness sakes, all hands on deck.
There's so many things that I can think of that would start violence, even though you both said in El Salvador, it became violent before it got better because people had to be jailed, what have you. But even if you think of one thing happening, let's say Trump gets elected and they cut off all money to the illegals. No more funding, no more free housing, no more.
They're going to get desperate.
And they're going to get violent.
Probably. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So that's just one thing that could happen. And Trump already says, everybody's going. You're not a citizen.
Look,
everybody's going.
Look, I think strategically, we haven't talked about this on the show. We need to probably next week or the week after. As all the people that are being spoken about on his VP picks, I mean, there's a lot of good names and good people that he could pick from. And then there's even more people that are going to be part of the cabinet. I mean, he's going to have like the A team, it seems like. I mean that. And
I think that's right.
I'm leaning. I lean towards Marco Rubio.
Me too. That's who I want.
And number one, that guy has really come up. I mean, he's just so bold, unwavering. Now, the only thing about him is like, who's going to take over Florida? Is either I want Rubio, either governor of Florida or a vice president. But you can't go wrong with either one of them. But you have to think of two things. Number one, the person needs to be prepared. Trump said this himself, to take over day one, because if something happened, Trump acknowledges his age. He's not stupid. And even though, thank God, it seems to be okay, but and then number two, the person, male or female, is going to be the heir apparent for 8 more years, or at least for the next term, is going to be the presumptive Republican nominee for the next go around. Which rightfully so. We need more than 4 more years. We need 12 to 16 more years to right this ship.
Certainly do. Yeah,
certainly do. But we need to be strategic about it. I mean, but I think his cabinet's going to be super strong. Look, I'm just so grateful that we have a lot of options out there. J.D. Vance seems to be very strong. I like Byron Donalds a lot. There's just a lot of people. Tulsi, I don't believe I would not be my first pick for VP. Although I hope she's very close. I hope she's part of his cabinet and in his administration, and I think she would be. She said she'd be open to help the country no matter what. She took a bunch of heat and took a bunch of shit when she was a congresswoman. I mean, she was the first to meet with Trump when he was president-elect, and they turned on her. She was the heir apparent and the darling, the Democrat darling. And even though, thankfully, some of her positions have changed, and she's really seen things, but she seems like a true blue. She was genuine. I mean, she cares about the country. She served our country. They turned on her like rabid dogs.
They sure did.
Lied about her, and she's bold and strong. And so I hope Trump keeps her close. But I would prefer Marco Rubio. I don't think she's even in the running, even though she's been mentioned for VP. But I'm leaning towards Marco Rubio.
Isn't it funny? Marco Rubio is, for me, a pick also, but that he is above DeSantis in a lot of people's minds. And I think that maybe DeSantis, I don't know, pushed himself down a few notches when he went up against Trump.
Look, under pressure, I think people are forgiving. I think the way Ron handles that, because he went back to being a badass governor as soon as he quit being the vice president candidate. I mean, the presidential candidate. I mean, I'm not opposed to Ron. I mean, I think he just said, look, you know what? It was a different stage for me. I learned a lot from it. Kind of like what Vivek says.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from it. I think people understand my desire to want to protect and preserve this constitutional republic. I think I have a record in Florida, and I want to try to expand that record to all the states of this union, not just to this country, not just in Florida. I'd be fine with Ron, to be honest with you. I mean, I think
I would too.
You stole my thunder, man. I mean,
sorry.
You know how I feel about those guys.
Yeah.
I was very critical of DeSantis during the campaign, but he's the guy's just a phenomenal governor. He's doing just great work. He's exactly what Florida needs. And yeah, I think he's right. Florida is unquestionably bright red.
Oh yeah.
And that is a wonderful thing, because there is no path, generally speaking, there's no path to the presidency on the electoral map apart from winning Florida. And Trump's got that in the bag, and that's a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. If they can overcome the issue of Trump being from Florida, having his residence there, and Marco Rubio being from Florida as a vice presidential candidate, there is a constitutional limitation. If they can overcome that, then I'm unquestionably Marco Rubio. I think he's. What were we texting maybe a month or so ago, a couple of weeks ago? We said he's a long way from the Gang of Eight.
Oh my God, that poor guy at that point.
On faux immigration. That's when they coined the comprehensive immigration reform, which is code for let's not do a damn thing to actually fix the problem. So this is a 180 for Marco Rubio, and he's out there arguing for mass deportation. I mean, this I feel like this is very surreal. I can't imagine.
But then who takes over Florida?
DeSantis is in there through 27. So yeah, it's a good question, but I don't know. But Byron Donalds is really capable. Byron Donalds is really capable. I'd love
for governor. That's a good word.
I'd love to see him.
Yeah,
take
I
over.
think that'd be a great step for him.
He's a capable man, and
that guy
a smart man.
is a debater and
he's
that guy's
dude's
fearless, but he's educated. He's almost. I'm very cautious to use the word perfect. With the interviews I've seen, he's good.
No, he's good. I love the guy. Yeah. I mean, he's just so
he's
good.
So good.
So
good
I think if you're asking,
he is a superstar.
I think he'd be a great to carry the mantle beyond DeSantis as governor of Florida. But I agree with you. I think Rubio would be a fantastic vice president. And that guy, I mean, I want to pay money to be on the front row eating non-buttered fluffy popcorn to watch the debate between Marco Rubio and Kamala Harris.
Rubio. He's so seasoned now. He's so seasoned now.
It's probably never going to happen.
He's done so well. I'm so impressed. And Ted Cruz has done so well.
Ted Cruz is
I hear there was a poll that he's up against. He's ahead of his opponent by 10 points or something like that. Praise God for that. I mean, good for Ted. He's grown on me so much over the years. You know, I give honor to when honor is due. I really do my best to do that. And if it's criticism, I hope it's constructive and it's reasonable. But if somebody course corrects, I've been in that course correction mode. I'm far from perfect, and I'm going to continue to pray for wisdom and to correct until the Lord calls me home. But I would love to see. I mean, a buddy of mine mentioned this the other day, and I like the idea too of Ted Cruz running for governor eventually. Once Abbott wants to step down, you know, Abbott's
I would
doing
love
a great
that.
job now. And love that
would
too.
Be
right?
phenomenal.
I think so. I mean, look, we just have. I just love that. For a while there, it seemed like, what the hell do we have? We've got a bunch of fucking idiots on our side. You know, what are we going to do? But no, it's a deep bench.
The ditch John Cornyn remark has already popped up.
John
Cornyn, everybody's ready for him to be gone.
He's got to go.
The dude is dead wood. You know, you got to think about these pockets of excellence within the GOP. There's plenty of the opposite, unfortunately, but there's these pockets of excellence, men who really have the potential, if they're not already, to be true statesmen. And yet, at the top of the pyramid here, you've got Donald J. Trump, right? And so why? And it comes down to this, to the moment requiring the man. You got a guy who's truly unconventional, Nico, and can take a lot of shit. Trump.
Oh yeah.
So
cockroach.
I mean,
he is. I mean, how do you? What do you say? Like, I mean,
I like that.
He's a cockroach. I mean, he's a cockroach. I mean,
he really is.
He said it in the interviews. Who else could have taken all this shit?
Nobody.
I mean, what are you gonna do if you get arrested? It's an honor to fight for the Constitution.
What if they send you to jail? I'll go to jail.
I mean, the guy. He's a freak of nature.
Who says that?
He is a total freak.
I mean,
what are you gonna do? And then you ask him. And there's moments when you ask him to say why he's doing what he's saying, and he comes down and he says the most basic, powerful things like, "I love this country. I just love the country," you know. And he says it over and over again. And he has a faith in the American people, and he has a faith on the foundations of America. And there's a sense of gratitude for his seemingly lack of ability to apologize for anything.
I know.
The guy does project an incredible humility when he's talking about the country. You sense.
So that was an inside statement, because we were talking about Chris Cuomo not apologizing. He was on a debate with this guy Dave Smith, and it was a very fascinating debate. I had to watch it on like double speed, you know, listen to these guys talk fast, because you know it was a long debate. But it was productive. It was good. We needed that. Look, good for Cuomo to get on there and take some shit. I mean, he's not in his environment and arena, and he took it.
Yeah.
And so that's why he said never did. And Trump and I said, look, to be fair, I mean, he's just taking a book out of Trump's. You know, I disagree with Cuomo on a lot of stuff, and I like him on certain stuff, but he didn't apologize for his, you know. Yeah. And they showed that that collection of all the
trashing
from
people
Cavuto,
for
that dumb idiot from Cavuto. What's his name on Fox? That guy with Neil. What a dumb dick. I mean, that guy was just. These people were just stupid. From what's that guy Jim? the night show host now. I forget all the
I don't have
names.
cable.
From the night took over the late show. What's
Jimmy
his name?
Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy
Yeah, that's dumb.
Kimmel.
I mean, these people. I mean, just the way they handled this, and then no humility to say, "Damn, we were wrong." Like Megyn Kelly, I was wrong. I mean, I have effects from it. Cuomo said, "Look, I was wrong." He did say he was wrong about certain things, right, George? Good to point that out.
Ivermectin.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right now he's on ivermectin. You know, so look, that is the human experience to be wrong. I mean, so and
It's
everyone,
just reality.
it's just, it's unavoidable. So I have a buddy of mine that was in the Air Force, and there was a captain who had this sign over his desk when you walked in. It says, "Good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from bad decisions." That's true.
Love
That's the
it.
human.
Love it.
Good decisions come from experience, and everyone wants to stay there. Yeah. Well, what do you think that experience came from? Bad decisions. Why don't I touch a pot? Why don't I touch a pot that's red? Because my stupid ass touched the pot that was red and it was hot, and I burned
I
my
love
finger.
that.
I'm not going to do that again. That was a bad decision that led to a good decision. That's called sanctification. Romans 8:28. God can work it all out. So I mean, course correction is part of and we should need to be humble enough to say, "I was wrong." That was it.
But sometimes I think people hate Trump, and I laugh at this, but remember when Vivek got to be on stage when Trump won? I can't remember what primary, and he was like jumping up and down like a kid, and
Vivek
Trump's
was?
like, Trump's like, "I'm going to let you speak, but I know how much you talk, and so you get 5 minutes." And like when he says things like that, I just cry. I laugh so hard. But when he says things, people are like, "See, that's what kind of, ass he is, that he is, telling somebody to shut up." Like, instead of just seeing him as a person that's saying, Vivek does talk a lot, he won't shut up, this is not his time.
When everything that matters to you is about crushing your enemies and dehumanizing them, you almost lose the ability to laugh at yourself. Nothing's funny. Everything's very serious. It's all about destroying the other person. You can't laugh at yourself. You can't laugh at others. You can't even have a good time. And Trump just absolutely refuses. He refuses to adopt that shit. He just won't. He won't tolerate it. And so he'll say what's on his mind. He epitomizes free speech. He literally states everything that's on his mind. I think we could argue that maybe some things may be better left unsaid. Okay, fine, strategically.
Right.
But he's fearless. And this is exactly what's needed, because if you think about it, on the other side, you have this totalitarian, what's the term? Cancel culture. It's the best way to describe it. It's truly totalitarian. It's militaristic. It's mean-spirited. And it's completely dismissive of the fact that on the other side, there's a human being, Nico, that God has created, an image bearer that's worthy of being listened to. Yeah, you might disagree. Maybe they're dead wrong on the facts, but they're human beings and they're worthy of being listened to. And so this cancer culture, paganistic cult, this movement built on the idea, and this is what really ruffles Trump, and you can see it. Because again, the guy at the very core adores this country. And I could relate to that because in my own story, I adore this country.
Yeah.
I adore it. I feel indebtedness to this country. I recognize that God used it ultimately here. But I'm very grateful for the fact that God used this country to bring order and peace to my own family. Trump, who looks back at his family and the generations in the Trump family and what they've come from and the wealth that they've built and the opportunities that they have, he is genuinely grateful for that. And so you have this movement that's built on the idea that America is founded. Remember, the thing that Trump loves the most, it requires, what did Obama say? Fundamental transformation. We're just a few days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. Guess what, dude? People don't want you to fundamentally transform the United States of America. We can always get better. Let's build on the good things that we have. But to fundamentally transform it, to burn it to the ground, Trump senses that that's he gets it. I don't think he knew it coming in his first term, Nico.
Yeah, he didn't know.
But now, man, he viscerally gets it.
Yeah.
And he understands that it's a movement that is hell-bent on destroying the very reason why he succeeded all those years. And man, he's got a personal problem with that. And so for him to say, sure, I'll go to jail.
That kills
if I
me.
go
Yeah.
broke, if I go broke, I go broke.
Wow.
I mean, wow.
That's a big deal, man. Look, I mean, we were asked a
Who else
question.
is
Did
gonna
you
say
see the Dr. Phil interview with Trump? It's on my list.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. And with those two, because they both talk slow, that one you can watch at 1.5 speed, not just 1.25. So I'll get through that one quicker.
Why
But
Dr. Phil though?
I don't know.
Why?
Look, he's been bolder lately. I don't know. That dude's. He's at an age in life, and
Everybody
he goes,
knows who he is.
"Yeah, I don't." He goes, "I don't
True.
get political." But I mean, he was on Bill Maher, Dr.
Mhm.
Phil.
I know.
And I saw some of that. I got to go back and watch that one when I have time. Again, I like Bill Maher. I love that he has those people on. We need more of that. We need more conversations. We need more passionate disagreement, but respectful. There's got to be rules of engagement to our disagreement if this country is going to survive.
You bet.
It just has to be. And there needs to be healthy disagreement because it either refines your position and makes you say, maybe I don't have it right. I haven't thought deep enough about this. Or hey, I need to change my position on that. Regardless, it's just healthy, or it's going to reinforce that you're correct, or you'll change somebody and bring someone. But I'm going to go back, and I'm not go back. It's on my. I got to watch it.
Me too.
It came up on my feed. I just haven't had time. But I'm assuming it was good.
And the issues that are bounced back and forth, and
The interview.
Mhm.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah.
You didn't read it? The transcript?
I haven't watched it.
You read or- we
I
gotta
know.
read it.
I know.
He always makes fun of that.
Well, you make fun of me.
I
don't have
I
time
do
to
the
listen.
2-time video.
I don't have time
I do
to-
the video at times too.
I can't read like this. This guy. I mean, I was going to say fucker. I was going to say idiot. He's so smart. And I go,
You like this fucker.
yeah. No, but I mean, he reads like super speed, and then he pays attention, and then he has a photographic memory. I'm
pays
reading
attention.
something, and then something else. Like I'm like that.
And
Finding
he's finished
Nemo
the
dude.
book. I
Yeah,
know.
my distraction. He's done with the book. While I'm on page
There is
one.
a school of thought that contends that reading something is a better avenue towards retention versus
Well, that's
listening.
great. Thanks. Rub it in.
If I can finish it.
versus listening to it. Look, I mean, you're kind of living proof of that. You made
No,
it through
I'm
law
not.
school.
I know.
You're a lawyer of lawyers. So you didn't watch videos through law school.
Yeah.
Did you watch?
It's
Did you watch-
working.
Charming.
It's
did you watch
working.
videos through law school? I don't think so.
No.
You read a lot of case law.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Exactly. But again, Trump started 2015 on an issue that's alive and well today, and everybody thought he was racist and nuts for it.
Yeah.
I mean, except the average American. The average American knew he was absolutely spot on, and they just swarmed towards him. But the elites, the national
which one? You
media,
talking about
talking,
the border?
yes,
Okay, well, yeah, but not everybody knew that, George. I mean, now everybody knows it. I
You're
don't think-
right.
Yeah,
You're
not
right.
everybody knew it back
the
then.
average American that was being, because Karen and I were beating this concept around earlier, the concept of labor participation rate.
Yeah.
That was a problem back then in 2015. The idea that, and Tucker Carlson was talking about it back then as well, this idea that you're flooding your economy with low-wage workers that Americans can't possibly compete with. So these people are coming in, they're making virtually nothing, and they consider it a huge raise compared to where they come from. And Americans can't compete with that. And so this is why the labor participation rate continues to go down, because what's happening is that these people they're not even on worker roles. So they're invisible, and they're taking these jobs away. And so they dare come out and say, oh my gosh, look at all these new jobs that have been created. And I finally went back because it was driving me crazy. It's the House Budget Committee and the Labor Department that had issued that news. Quote, roughly half the new jobs created in the U.S. economy since October have gone to illegal immigrants. Many of them, have gone to immigrants, many of them in the country illegally, according to a new analysis by the House Budget Committee. The Labor Department released its latest employment data Friday, showing the economy added jobs, but the overall labor participation rate ticked down. How can that be?
House Budget Committee? Or what?
House Budget Committee.
House
And
Budget Committee.
then gleaning data, drawing on data from the Labor Department. Think about that. How does that work? See, Trump taps into this kind of shit. He doesn't go along with the crowd and say, oh my gosh, look at all these jobs that have been created. He says all these jobs, quote unquote, have been created, and yet the labor participation rate is descending at the speed of light. Why? What is the labor participation rate? It's the sum total of the people who are working, and it's plus the sum total of people who are actively looking for work, divided by the total number of people who can work over the age of 16. And that number is dropping. Why? Because people who are invisible, because they're illegal, are taking those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
How they're taking the jobs? All these jobs have been created. Yeah, you're giving half of them to people who shouldn't be here, but the labor participation rate is in the basement because the real workers aren't getting the jobs. So Trump calls bullshit on that. Who else is going to do it? That's my point, Nico. Who else is willing to call out the shit nobody wants to talk about? It's unpopular. So Trump has emboldened the Ted Cruzes, I think. He's emboldened the Marco Rubios. I'm sorry, it's a 180 for Marco Rubio.
Oh, yeah.
How the hell did he got here? It's the Trump factor. Marco Rubio is a Trump apologist. Those guys were at each other's throats
They
in
so
2016.
were.
Were they
Yep.
not?
Yep.
Trump has an uncanny ability to bring people around who are visceral opponents and create
I think
this
he-
kind of consensus around him because of his policies.
Well, I think you
Not
watch.
because
I
he's
bet
not
he
a
bring-
dick sometimes, because he is.
Well, he's a dick sometimes too, but I bet he brings back Nikki Haley somehow.
Oh, don't even say
I'm
that.
telling you.
Please
I'm
don't
telling
say
you.
that.
I'm having an autoimmune response at
I'm
the, at the
telling
thought
you.
of that.
Well, I mean, look, I
Kurt
don't know.
Schlichter at Town Hall, he's really going to lose his shit because he can't stand Nikki. He thinks
Well,
she's
I-
insufferably fake. Give me a scenario under which that could possibly be the case.
I'm not as VP, but
Definitely not.
who knows?
White House janitor.
No, I don't know. I mean, look, she's a capable person.
No,
I
she
just-
is, but I just don't appreciate what
I don't either.
she did.
She lost a lot of credibility with me, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Look, he's got a lot of options. He's got a
He
lot
does.
of options.
He does?
Christy Noem's not one of them.
Or
Sorry,
her
George.
dog- or her
Sorry,
dog.
George. You can't whack out dogs, and then it's not going to happen.
That was a kick in the nuts. He knows I really have liked Christina. Look, the second book is a disaster, and it did her in. I don't know who was giving her advice, and I don't know why she listened to it. It was terrible political advice to put that dog story in there. I get why they thought it was a good idea. I can't believe that they actually went through with it. I mean, I could see it ended up on a whiteboard and dying there. But the idea that it made it into the book. I want to go back to the first book because I loved the book. And I think every American should read it. And that's not hyperbole. Not My First Rodeo by Christy Noem, the first book that she wrote, where she goes back to her daddy's story. And she gets into
Heard about it.
She gets in the nitty gritty of that story.
About
And-
taxes and the ranch or something like that.
About the
right?
loss of the
Yeah,
ranch
yeah.
and then the recognition that there's this huge administrative state that God forbid, your parent passes away and that they could conceivably leave you a wonderful nest egg of all the years they work hard to leave that for their children. And they can't because the tax system will literally rape you. And she was motivated by that. It's just grotesquely unjust. And so stood in the fray to protect her family. I love the story. She had no intentions of becoming a politician. If you look at the work that she was doing, truly working on the farm, zero intentions. And then the situation opened up. The moment makes the man and the woman. I love the story. I wish, Nico, she would have gone back to that book and drawn from those lessons and sort of done a revision or maybe redone a new book tour, whatever you want to call it. That's the book she should have gone back to. So I kind of agree with the fact
I
that
was
she's
always
not-
kind of hesitant on her. Remember, you heard me, Karen. I just think
Well,
something
the
about
whole
her. I
thing
don't-
about
Well, you didn't like
her.
the fact she was very
Well,
stilted, right?
she was very Mike Pence-ish to me.
Oh,
I'm just saying she was to me. I mean, she was like a Mike.
And she didn't react when people said she was having an affair.
That bothered me.
At all.
That
she
bothered
didn't
me.
mention.
She did react one time, but then that's not a one or done thing. That's not a one or done thing. It's like someone accusing you, of abusing your kid. You're going to say, I already answered that. I didn't abuse my kid. No, every time you're going to say, what a vile, evil lie.
Right.
Vile lie. Get with the guy they're accusing her. Get Chris on the line right now. Put him in. Bring him in. There's no way. Get my husband on. I have nothing to hide. I'm in love with my husband. But that's typical when it's a trial tactic. When you have the law on your side, you attack the law. You argue the law. When you have the facts on your side, you attack the facts.
Mhm.
When you have neither, you attack the opposing counsel. And that applies to politics too.
That's
And
so
so that's
good.
it. It's the same thing. I would have done it that way, but I would have never run from it. I would have answered each question and deflected. Not deflected,
good
meaning
point.
you control the interview. You go where I already answered your question. You're not going to get, I'm not a piñata. Let's talk about the issues that are affecting my citizens. So are the citizens of my state. So that's it. That bothered me too, but what are you going to do?
it's a damn good point. Yeah. So crossroads, America at a crossroads. Here we are.
All right.
What's next?
We're going to wrap up,
We're
but
good?
I
Yep.
do want to just say I still believe, even though it feels so good right now, when it comes to Trump and the ground he's gaining, it still matters on people voting because
Of course it does.
there's always that rabid hatred for Trump
But the ground
that can
he's-
push those people
The
forward.
ground he's gaining only materializes if you vote.
That's right.
Because the ground he's gaining are potential voters. But we need to look. Here's what I'm leaving with this because we talked about this. I really hope more people have conversations. I hope people are drawn to this show. They disagree with us, like the gentleman Manny from last week that I will get a chance to talk to, hopefully, and other people that we can talk and have conversations. I mean, look, Charlemagne the God was on the 5. You know, I mean, we need that, and you know, and
But that guy is
Well,
militant.
Look, the fact that he'll come on, he's not crazy on every issue. He admits, he goes, I have Trump deranged syndrome. He admitted it. Okay, cool. I mean, I appreciate someone that can self-diagnose themselves. But I want to ask him, why do you have it? What does it mean to you? And why do you have it? And how do you cure it?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be cured. Well, it's a condition that I think is unreasonable. Let's talk about whether it's and I'd had that conversation, kind of like a diagnostic conversation with him, that they didn't have time to have it obviously on that. But we need more of that. We need more of conversation. We need more of training up in our ability to persuade people. We need to study and have the facts on our side. We need to have a moral compass and a foundation of why we're saying this is right and wrong. If you're going to call something right and wrong, you better know what right and wrong means and be able to defend why you think it's right and wrong. We need to go back. We need the church to get involved. We need people to get involved. We need parents to get involved. We need it all. We need an all hands on deck approach, because it was an all hands not on deck approach to let this drift away. So.
Right.
But with that being said, Senor, we done? We're good? Okay. Have a blessed weekend. Whoever the camera I'm looking at, I have no idea today. But have a blessed weekend. Hope you share this with somebody you think may benefit from it. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy your families. God bless you.